The footy is back. In only a few days, the 2024 AFL season will get underway with Sydney taking on Melbourne on a Thursday night at the SCG. With the pre-season done and the real season about to get underway, it's about time that I made my set of ladder predictions for the upcoming year. You've probably seen about 50 different people do this already. It's an annual tradition for the AFL community, and it's time for me to jump on the bandwagon. So without further ado, let's just get straight into the predictions. So starting things off, in 18th spot, the Wooden Spooners for 2024, I've got North Melbourne. I think it's going to be another pretty dismal year for them this year. The last two seasons, they finished 18th and 17th. Both years, they were pretty much neck and neck with West Coast, who in both of those seasons had absolutely a diabolical injury run. And in fact, I'm pretty sure in 2022, the North Melbourne beat West Coast. But in 2023, once West Coast got their players back, they did actually manage to beat North Melbourne by about a goal. So yeah, I think that I'm kind of basing this position off the logic that West Coast will not have such a bad injury run in 2024, because I think that really those two sides are the only two teams, in my opinion anyway, that are any real chance of winning the Wooden Spoon. And I think that West Coast have a better team, provided that they don't have half of their list missing through various different injuries. Well, if you hadn't already guessed, I've got West Coast in 17th. Like I just said, I'm basing this pick more or less on the basis that they, hopefully, for their sake, shouldn't have such a bad injury run this year. Even if they have like a moderate injury list throughout most of the season, I still think that they have the capability to push up and play a lot better than what they were last year and the season before that as well. So yeah, I think that provided that they don't lose 20 players at a time through injury, they should be, I think they're capable of avoiding the Wooden Spoon this year. In 16th spot, I've got Hawthorn. So far this ladder prediction is looking pretty similar to what the ladder was like last year. Trust me, that is going to change. But Hawthorn, I think that they're probably in for another bottom four finish. They've had a number of injuries over the pre-season. They had one ACL injury to James Blank, so he's going to miss the entire season. A couple of other of their younger players, like Will Day, I know is going to miss the first few rounds. Marbia Chol did have a slight shoulder injury, although he played the second practice match, so he should be fine. But yeah, they've had a few other injuries, and if that is a theme that is going to continue throughout the year, then I think that they are definitely not going to be jumping up the ladder too far. And even if they have a pretty healthy injury run from here, I think they're just still too young and inexperienced to make a big leap up the ladder. And rounding out the bottom four now, I have got the Richmond Tigers. I think this is a pretty safe bet for a team that's going to drop down the ladder. Although, that being said, this is only 2 positions lower than what they finished in 2023. But they had a few retirees, Trent Cotchin, Jack Revolt. They don't really have a whole lot of young talent. They've got Josh Gibcus, who's coming back from missing the entire of 2023 through injury. So how good he's going to be, I'm not really sure. But other than that, they don't have too many young players of note. Like, you compare them to even North Melbourne and Hawthorn and even West Coast now. Like, all 3 of those teams have some pretty good young talent coming through the ranks. But Richmond, there's not really any of that. And while their top end talent is still pretty good, I think that they are vulnerable if they do get a few injuries to some of their key players. Then I don't believe they have that much depth to cover, say, Dustin Martin, Tom Lynch, who's going to miss a part of the first part of the season, and like players like that. So I think if a couple of those types of players go down, then it's going to be pretty bleak for Richmond this year. In 14th spot, I've got Fremantle. This is where they finished last year, and I can't see them moving up the ladder, not now that they've lost Lockie Schultz. He was such a critical player to that forward line. Their forward line was by far their weakest area of the ground, and Lockie Schultz was arguably probably one of their only good forwards. Jai Amos was pretty good last year, 40 goals, but I think Schultz was by far and away their best small forward and probably their best forward in general because of the forward pressure he put on. So now he's gone, I really can't see them improving. Maybe if a few of their young players, take another step, your players like Matthew Johnson, Tom Emmett, and those sorts of players. They also lost Liam Henry, who was handy throughout parts of last year. So yeah, I think Fremantle are going to struggle again this year. And the problem of players constantly leaving the club is definitely something that they're going to have to address and fix if they are wanting to push for a premiership anytime soon. In 13th spot now, I think this is going to be a bit of an unpopular pick. A lot of people have this team rising up the ladder, and that is Gold Coast, but I just can't see it happening. I know they have a new coach in Damien Hardwick. Hardwick was obviously a 3-time premiership coach with Richmond, but these sorts of acquisition of coaches that have previously won premierships don't always work out, and I think that it's going to be a little while yet before Gold Coast finally make the strides and make the top 8, because they are just such an average team still. They didn't really add anything over the off-season. They had a couple of sort of depth players leave the club. So in terms of their list strength, you could maybe say that a few of their younger players are going to improve, but then there's also a chance that some of their more experienced players decline. So I really can't see them moving up the ladder that much. They were very average last year, finished bottom 4, but were, I think, a fair bit better than the 3 teams below them. And I think they're probably going to finish around that mark again this year. I can't see them moving up the ladder too much. And unless they refresh the list a little bit, I really can't see them making the top 8. In 12th spot now, I've got the Geelong Cats. I can't see them making it back into the top 8, and in fact, I think they probably could finish lower than this. Cam Guthrie went down with a quad injury during their second practice match. He was out for a lot of last year, and their midfield really suffered his loss. I don't think they have a whole lot of depth in that area to cover for someone like Cam Guthrie. So I think they're probably going to be finishing around the same spot as they did last year. They do have a few good young players coming through the ranks, but on the same token, Tom Hawkins is 36 or 37 now. I think he's 36. Either way, you can't imagine he's going to continue to kick 50-60 goals per season every year this could very well be his last season if he doesn't produce another stellar effort, which he has been doing for the last few years, to be fair. There's still a few older players on that list which could start declining. So really, I feel like 12th is almost a bit of a generous pick for them. But on the same token, they are Geelong. They're never down for too long. And maybe they could prove us all wrong again and jump back into the top 8, but I can't see it happening. Okay, I've gone pretty safe up until this point in my ladder, but now I'm going to throw a curveball in and tip Melbourne to finish at 11th spot. I know a few people have been picking Melbourne to finish outside the top 8, but I still think that this is a pretty risky call, considering that they did finish, 4th last year. They've made the top 4 the last 3 seasons. And to be fair, I still think their list is very strong. However, there has been a lot of controversy surrounding the Demons this off-season. Joel Smith, well, he's probably never going to play AFL again after that drug scandal. Clayton Oliver, no one's really sure what's been happening with him. He didn't play in their second practice match, so it's still up in the air whether he's going to play in the opening round or not. Also, this one wasn't so much a controversy, but Angus Brayshaw retired, so that would just be really a kick in the guts to everyone who knew him at Melbourne. And there's a chance that could, ignite a fire inside them and really motivate them to push onwards this season, but it also could sap a lot of confidence and really just be a kick in the guts for a lot of players. So yeah, this is a bit of a bold call, but there's usually a team that finishes in the top 4 the previous season that falls out of the top 8 completely. So I'm going to be tipping it to be Melbourne. So this could easily backfire on me, but I definitely do think that Melbourne has shades of like 2021 Collingwood when they really fell off a cliff before they surged back up the ladder. There's just been so much going on, and yeah, I'm going to be tipping Melbourne to finish in 11th. In 10th spot now, I've got Essendon. I don't really know what to make of Essendon. Like, last year, they were very inconsistent. The first half of their season, for the most part, was very good. They were in the top 8 for a large percentage of the season, but then they just absolutely fell off a cliff in those last 7 or 8 rounds, I want to say. Like, they had a couple of wins over North Melbourne and West Coast. They only just beat both of those teams. They got smashed by Geelong, smashed by Collingwood, absolutely obliterated by the Giants. 126 points. They were the only team other than West Coast in 2023 to suffer a 100-point defeat. So yeah, they have got a few new good recruits. They got Xavier Dersma in, Ben Mackay in, so also Todd Goldstein. So will those recruits push them up the ladder? I'm not too sure. It really depends on what Essendon comes out to play in 2024. I think they're probably still going to be a bit of an inconsistent team, and as a result, they'll probably just miss out on the 8. Moving on to position number 9, and I'm going to get absolutely crucified for this one, but I've got Carlton missing out on the top 8, finishing in 9th. Let me explain. This pick was more or less just me trying to find another shock team to miss out on the top 8, but I do think there is some logic behind it. In the last 2 seasons, even in 2023 when Carlton had a surging run towards the prelim final, they played very inconsistently. In 2022, they were in the top 8 all season up until the final minute of the final round when they famously got beaten by Collingwood, although even before that, they had lost a number of games in a row. And in 2023, their start was absolutely shocking. They were bottom 4 at one stage before they went on a 7-game winning streak and eventually made it all the way to the prelim final. But that first half of the season, they were just terrible. Like, they didn't look like they cared about anything. There was just no second efforts. It was just lazy football. So I think if they get a few injuries, Carlton, I think they're very susceptible to just falling in a heap and giving up. So, look, this is a very bold call, and Carlton could easily win the premiership. But I think there is a universe where Carlton could drop out of the top 8. Their depth is still a little bit of an issue. Like, in 2022, when they had a few injuries to some of their key players, they really didn't have much to cover those players. So, yeah, I think that if they have a bit of a crappy injury run, then there's potential for them to just fall in a heap and return to being the Carlton we've known for the past 10 years. Now we move on to the top 8, and in 8th I've got the Bulldogs, so it's 2022 all over again for the Dogs and Carlton. I think they could finish a lot higher with the talent they have on their list, but with Luke Beveridge as their coach, I just can't trust them to finish any higher than this middle of the ladder region. They have so much talent across the board, but Luke Beveridge consistently is just playing players in the wrong position and just coming up with weird, funky game plans that don't work. So, plus you add on the fact that Bailey Smith tore his ACL before the start of the season. I think that they really should finish a lot higher than 8th, but I'm going to have them to... They'll make the top 8, but I don't think they'll do a whole lot, sort of similar to the way their last few seasons have gone. In 7th now, I've got a team that a lot of people have tipped to move up the ladder, and that is Adelaide. Originally, I was thinking about having them in the top 4, but the only thing that was holding me back is their key defensive stocks. Nick Murray's going to be out for a large part of the season with an ACL. Other than that, they've got Jordan Butts down there. Daniel Curtin is sort of a medium tall type defender. Their general defenders and their running backs, I think, are still pretty good, but I think that they are very susceptible if, say, Jordan Butts or Mark Keane go down with an injury. I think there's not a whole lot there in terms of key defenders. So that's really my only concern for Adelaide. Otherwise, I think that they are primed for an absolutely amazing 2024 season. Their midfield's exciting, their forward line is exciting. But yeah, I think they should make finals. They should have made finals last year, really. But I think they definitely will make finals. But their key backs are just a little bit of a concern for me. So in 6th spot now, I've got my very own team, the Sydney Swans. I believe that we should push up the ladder. Our new recruits, Taylor Adams, James Jordan, Brodie Grundy, looking very good. Although Taylor Adams has done an injury and is going to miss the first few rounds of the season. Same with Luke Parker. So our midfield stocks are looking a little bit depleted. We do have a fair amount of depth in that area, but we've already lost Mills, Parker, and now Adams as well. So the injuries are starting to compound, but I still think that we have enough talent to cover for those players. Everywhere else on the ground, I believe that we're looking pretty solid. Last year we were ravaged by injuries in the back line and forward line. We almost missed the finals. In fact, we should have missed the finals if not for that goal umpiring decision. I believe that we should be better than what we were in 2023. We were pretty good in the back half of last year. Once we got all our injured players back, we were pretty good. We had a 6 or 7 game winning streak at one stage before the finals. So yeah, I think we should be good to move up the ladder a few positions in 2024. We could even push for top 4, but I think that if our injury situation in our midfield gets any worse, then we could be in a little bit of trouble, and that's why I have us missing the top 4 this year. In 5th now, I've got GWS moving up a couple of spots, not quite pushing into the top 4. I think the Giants are definitely going to be premiership contenders in 2024, and they're unlucky not to make the top 4. I think they very easily could. They could even make top 2. But yeah, I think that the Giants are going to be a very good team. They have pretty much every position on the ground covered. Small forwards, key forwards. Jesse Hogan was very good last year. Aaron Cadman looks very good. He looks like he may potentially have a breakout season this year after not doing a whole lot in his debut year. Their midfield is just stacked, and their back line is very solid as well. Sam Taylor, in my opinion, is the best defender in the league. So yeah, I think GWS would be probably unlucky to miss out on the top 4, but I think that there are 4 teams that are probably going to be better than them. In 4th spot now, I've got Collingwood. Now, obviously, I've had them sliding a few positions, still making the top 4, they won the flag in 2023. I think they might have a little bit of a drop-off. I can't see them falling out of the gate completely like Geelong did. I think they have more depth than what Geelong did. They're older players. They aren't as reliant as Geelong were on their veteran players. So I don't think that any, Scott Pendlebury aging and still Sidebottom aging, those types of players, I don't think that's going to have too much of an effect on Collingwood. They have brilliant young talent, and they also have a great new recruit in Lachie Schultz. Dan McStay is going to be out for the entire season, which is a real shame for him. But I just think that they might lose a bit of hunger, and as a result, they're probably just going to slide down a little bit, but still be a very competitive side, and they still, in my opinion, should be competing for the premiership. In third spot now, I'm going with a bit of a left field call, I feel, and that is St Kilda to finish inside the top 4. I only have them rising 3 spots, but I feel like this would be a much bigger jump than what those 3 ladder positions suggest. Last year, they lost the first elimination final. It was a home final at the MCG, but they got beaten pretty comfortably by GWS. I feel like another year with Ross Lyon as their coach, drilling down on the defensive side of the game, I think is gonna, I think they're pretty well set to have a good year in 2024. They're gonna have hopefully a whole year of Max King. He missed a lot of the 2023 season through injury. He could potentially win the Coleman medal. I think he'll be up there around the 50-60 goal mark this year. And Jack Steele, if he gets back to his best form, he's easily one of the best midfielders in the game. I feel like they're pretty well set in every part of the ground, forward line, midfield and back line. Dougal Howard did just injure his hamstring, I believe, in their recent practice match game, which just finished today. So I don't think that's going to be too much of an issue for them. I think they have a pretty good back line and they have pretty good players to cover him, but that is a little bit of a worry for the St Kilda in the early part of the season, I suppose. Under Ross Lyon, I think that they can get back to consistently being up the top end of the ladder, like they were in the late 2000s, early 2010s. I think St Kilda can really push to become a premiership contender this year. Now moving on to the top 2, I've got Brisbane in second position, same as where they finished in 2023. I think they'll be back ready to win the premiership in 2024. I think they'll use that grand final loss as fuel and determination to keep going and perform at their best. I think they'll be definitely competing for the premiership again this year. They have still a stacked list and they could easily finish top. I don't think there's really too much of a difference between first and second on the ladder, so I don't think it'll really matter whether they finish top or not. But I think Brisbane are definitely going to be one of the best teams again in 2024. And in first, obviously I've got Port Adelaide. They're the only team I haven't mentioned yet. I think Port are primed for another premiership push this year. They last year, their main issue was their key backline stocks. They brought in Asava Radaglia and also Brandon Zirk-Thatcher to fix that issue. So they'll be 2 very handy additions to the Port Adelaide squad. They also have Ivan Soldo and Jordan Sweet, so their issues with the ruck stocks are going to be, hopefully for them, a thing of the past. I think that, they really just, they were obviously a very good team last year, but they did have a few holes on their list. I believe that their recruiting did a good job at fixing those problems, their key backs and their rucks. So I think they just have a really sound list now. Their forward line is dynamic. So is their midfield, and now their back line is probably not the best in the league still, but it's solid, and I think it can do the job. So that's the latter part of the prediction out of the way, but now it's time to move on to the business end of the season, the final series. I'm going to skip straight through to the grand final. I've got it being another first v second matchup, Port Adelaide taking on the Brisbane Lions at the MCG, a rematch of 2004, but unlike 2004, Brisbane will prevail comfortably by 45 points and win their first flag in over 20 years. It won't be 2007 levels of embarrassing for Port Adelaide, but it will be a grand final to forget for the team in black, white and teal. Finally, it's time to finish off these predictions with the individual awards, starting off with the Brownlow medal. I'm going to go for the same player I tipped last year, and that is Marcus Bontempelli. He should have won it last year. He was robbed. Lachie Neale should not have won it. Marcus Bontempelli robbed. He should have 2 Brownlow medals by now, and this will be the year that he finally gets to wear that medal around his neck, like he should have done 2 times already. The Coleman medal, I'm going to tip Max King to win it. I think that this will be a breakout year for the St Kilda full forward. I reckon that the Saints will play with a bit more of an attacking flair than what we're used to under Ross Lyon. I don't know, that's just a bit of a hunch. I mean, there's no real logic behind that, but I'm backing in Max King in his 4th or 5th year now. Not quite sure. He's been in the league for a little while now, and this will be the year that he really announces himself to the competition and he will take home the Coleman medal. The Rising Star Award now, I'm going to be going with George Wardlaw. I'm not going to go the basic number 1 Harley Reid pick. I tipped North Melbourne to finish last, but I think George Wardlaw will be the one shining light in their season. He was brilliant in patches last year, missed a lot of it through injury, and that's why he's still eligible this season. And I think that if he has a full season to show off his capabilities, he will take home the Rising Star Award. And finally, this one isn't an award, but I'm going to make a surprise All-Australian pick, and I'm going to go with Lachie Schultz. I reckon he will thrive with the Magpies. He was already a fantastic player at Fremantle. I believe he finished 2nd or 3rd in their best and fairest this year. So he's definitely got the capability of kicking like somewhere between 40-45 goals at the Pies. His forward pressure is great too, so I think he ticks all the boxes for the Magpies as a small forward. He is a goal scoring threat and he applies plenty of pressure, and I think that he will do enough to get himself an All-Australian blazer. So there you have it, everyone. They are my 2024 AFL predictions. It's only going to be 2 days away from the start of the season when this gets uploaded, and I can't wait. My team are kicking things off this year. But let me know what you thought of my predictions in the comments below. Leave down some of your predictions. Be sure to abuse me if I left your team outside the top 8, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.